He's got a hood on his
Killed yourself. Oh, no. Hey. For the Walking Dead. Nope. John, you got to get a seat.
That corner over there.
Oh, the one you're used to?
One I'm very used to.
She just gets hugs like this.
I am so very proud and humbled to introduce to you a very passionate and patriotic survivor of the attack on Pearl Harbor, Survivor Chuck Kohler.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, thank you. Let me start my time here so I know where I am.
Take all the time you want.
Oh, my goodness. My goodness. You know, I've heard a lot of people say something about a 75th anniversary. What are they talking about? To me, to those of us who survived that event, it seems like only yesterday. You know, boy, oh boy, I'll tell you, I don't know where the time goes, but it certainly has passed on by. I'm sorry that there are not more survivors here today, but the Greatest Generation Foundation came by in about November and offered all of us an all-expense-paid trip back to Pearl Harbor for this anniversary. And so all of those whom I thought, some of those whom I thought would be at that luncheon Saturday and would be here today, boy, oh boy, they jumped aboard. And no, I don't think any of them jumped aboard. I don't think there's much jump left in any of us anymore. But somehow they got aboard something, and they're out in Pearl today, and I was privileged to see some of them on the TV this morning as they were participating in that event out there. I didn't go because I had already committed myself to that luncheon and to this event here today. Besides that, this is where my supporters are. This is where my family and my friends are. This is where I belong. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm sure that those of you who have family members and stuff that have served in the service, are serving now, or have served in the past, when we light that beacon later tonight, that can mean whatever you want it to mean to you. It's not just for those who lost their lives at Pearl Harbor. It can be for anyone and everyone who, down through the years, have stepped forward and given their life to provide, protect, and preserve those liberties and those freedoms. So that light can mean whatever you want it to mean to you. I was told when this beacon restoration was going on, I was trying to find out as much information as I could on it. I was told then that that beacon, that about 7 million people lived within a 1-hour drive of Mount Diablo. Now, if that's about 40 or 50 miles, I think that beacon beam is visible much further than that. So let's say that there's another 3 million people that could see that beacon if they would but make themselves available. So on that basis, that beacon can accommodate 1 million people per second. It rotates one rotation every 10 seconds. Show me, tell me, where there is any other memorial that can make itself available to that many people in that short a period of time. I don't care how many millions or tens of millions of dollars have been spent to build it. It's wherever it is, and it can only accommodate the number of people that can get there. And for this beacon here, you don't have to drive, you don't have to travel 3,000 or 4,000 miles to get to it. If you will make yourselves available, that beacon will come to you. It will send its beam of remembrance. It will search you out. It will find you. All you have to do is look for it. You know, if there were some real patriotic individual who said, I'm going to watch that beacon rotate one rotation for each and every individual who lost their lives on the island of Oahu that morning. For one ship alone, the USS Arizona, 1,177 crew members, you would have to stand and watch that beacon rotate for 3 hours, 16 minutes, and 10 seconds. Now, if you were going to watch it rotate for the total number who lost their lives on Oahu that day, you would have to stand and watch it rotate for 6 hours, 40 minutes and 50 seconds. That's quite a little bit of time to stand and watch that beacon rotate. I am told that we have seating here for approximately 100 people. I notice that not all the seats are full, but there are standing room. So let's say that we have 100 people here in the room. If you take a moment just to look around at the number of people that are here, then if you will multiply that number of people in your mind's eye 11 times, 1,100 people, you'll have the number of people, you'd still be short of the number of people who lost their lives on one ship alone, the USS Arizona. If you multiply this number of people 24 times, then you would have the number of people, would still be about 4 or 5 short of the number of people who lost their lives on the island of Oahu that morning from injuries either during that battle or from injuries received during that battle. I am so grateful to Save Mount Diablo, to each and every one of you who participated in any way whatsoever and still participate in that beacon restoration and in the lighting program for that. I doubt that any of you who were involved in that really fully understand what you have done for those of us who survived. I can't speak for my fellow survivors, but for me, I can't express how grateful I am to each and every one of you who participated in that event. And I just would hope that even, in the not too distant future, those of us who have survived will have gone on searching for that, what we hope this time is a safe harbor somewhere just over the horizon. And when that has happened, you will soon forget those of us who were there. But you must never, ever forget those who we had to leave there. I would hope that all of you today enjoy what we have for you here today. I am so thankful and grateful to each of you. You're such a fine-looking group of people, and I know many of you, and you have supported me to the extent that I never, ever expected. I do a lot of going around and speaking to history classes or groups or anyone that will basically listen to me. And in doing so, I've got a little bit of a following, but I do this not to draw attention to myself, but I do it to try to get you to remember and to honor those who we lost there that morning. I've been back to Pearl Harbor only one time. That was in 2010, the first time I'd been back there in 64 years. Standing aboard the Arizona Memorial that day, then going on to the U.S.-Utah Memorial, the Arizona Memorial, the Oklahoma Memorial, standing once again on the very spot that first bomb fell. I made a promise to those sunken shipmates and fallen comrades that I would do whatever I could, whenever I could, wherever I could, to bring to them the well-deserved honor and continued remembrance that they so rightfully deserve. And you people being here today shows me that you do remember and you do honor them, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing so. Am I about out of time? Oh. Thank you. I was prepared only for a short speech. He tells me, go on. So anyway, let me just give you a little bit of a rundown of that morning. I was in an upper-level office, Aerial Patrol Squadron VP 23's hangar, trying to type a letter to my dear sweet mother. I was using that old hunt and peck system, on the old manual typewriter. Then if you could type 40 words a minute, you were considered an expert typist. It was maybe taking me about 4 minutes to do a word, but I was making progress. I was proud of what I was doing. I was really going to impress my family back there on the farm with that typewritten letter. I heard the sound of an approaching aircraft in the background. That's not unusual. Airplanes come and go, not usually on a Sunday. The sound grew louder and louder, and I thought, oh, well, a couple of the aircraft carriers had left the harbor the previous week to deliver short-range aircraft to our military forces on Wake and Midway Island. I figured they must be returning, and as usual, they will send their aircraft in to operate off the land base while the carrier's in the harbor. Suddenly, the sound of that airplane changed, and I knew immediately it was in a power dive, and I'm thinking, oh, boy, that's one of those carrier air group pilots. He's got a little bit bored with that standard formation flying. He's wanting to do a little hot dogging and have a little fun, and I'm thinking, boy, I wouldn't want to be in his shoes when the commanding officer gets a hold of him. He's really going to be in trouble. Little did I realize that it was those of us there on the ground and on the ships that were going to be in some serious trouble very, very shortly. Suddenly and almost simultaneously, there was a tremendous roar. Bomb fragments, explosion debris, window glass came crashing into the back of my head, ears, neck, and onto my shoulders. Those of you who have been involved in similar events will maybe remember that can kind of derail your train of thoughts. It did mine anyway. It took me a few moments to get them back together, but I'm still thinking it's one of our friendly air group pilots, So I get up and run down to the lower level, out through the narrow opening, left the closed end of the rolling hangar door, the sound of another aircraft. I looked up, and here comes this airplane in a steep power dive. I'm seeing what's looking like blinking or flashing lights on the front, hearing strange popping, buzzing, and whizzing sounds all about me, but I don't recognize them for what they were. Later, I was told that what I thought were blinking or flashing lights was actually machine gun muzzle flashes, and those popping, buzzing, and whizzing sounds that I was hearing were those machine gun bullets striking and ricocheting off the steel hangar door right behind me and off the concrete apron on which I was standing. But since I didn't recognize them for what they were, I didn't consider them any danger to me. My interest was drawn to a big old bomb hanging out the bottom of the fuselage between the fixed landing gear and that old radial engine valve dive bomber. Suddenly that bomb released, it wobbled as it began to fall. That airplane began to pull out of its dive. By the time it had completed its dive and was in level flight, I don't think it was more than 100, 150 feet over my head. It's then that I first saw and recognized that big round red insignia there on the bottom of the wing. That and the fact that he's just dropped a bomb has convinced me that these are not the friendly fellows I thought they might be, I turned around, hurried back inside the hangar, hoping I could find someone with the key to the ammo shack. All of our guns and ammunition was locked up. I wanted to get a gun and get at these guys, But as I come in the front door of the hangar, the other few that I went on duty with that morning were heading out the back door. Somebody, I suppose the duty officer, spots me and says, "Hey, you, follow me." I went after him. I thought, oh, boy, we're going to get some guns and ammo. We're going to do something about this, But instead of turning to the right and going down to the ammo shack, they turned to the left, went out there somewhere, jumped into an on-field construction ditch. I jumped in after them. I hit the bottom of that ditch, looked up. I'm looking at a guy there in his white uniform. The work uniform was blue bell-bottom dungaree trousers and chambray work shirt, but he was in his dress white uniform as though he was going into Honolulu, going to church or something. Never did find out why he was in his white uniform, but I'm so thankful that he was, because there on the left sleeve of that uniform was the petty officer's rating badge. I recognized the wing-bound cannonball, the insignia of an aviation ordnanceman. I said, "You the duty ordnanceman, you got a key for the ammo shack. Let's go get some guns and shoot these blankety blanks, So I hadn't much more than hit the bottom of the ditch, and I and that ordnanceman were on our way up out of the ditch. Somebody, again I suppose the duty officer, shouts, "Get back in the ditch! Get back in the ditch!" I don't want to be in that ditch. We're military men. We should be putting up a defense. We shouldn't be here in this ditch. Besides, I know this is the beginning of that war that they've been talking about and we've been preparing for. And I'm from a proud family, and I damn well know that if I'm going to lose my life in this or any other battle of this war, I would want my family and my country to know that I died fighting, not hiding. We continued up out of that ditch, started to run for the ammo shack. Then I heard the most unexpected command directed at myself and the ordnanceman I thought I would ever hear. Somebody, again I suppose the duty officer, shouts, "Get back in the ditch or I'll put you on report for disobeying a direct order." Hell's bells. Talk about being between a rock and a hard spot. These guys in these airplanes are machine gunning and dropping bombs, trying to kill as many of us as they could, and our own duty officer, sheltering here in the ditch, is threatening us with military discipline for one to defend ourselves? I couldn't believe it. with total and complete disregard for the threat of military discipline, with total and complete disregard to the fact that aerial bombs, machine gun bullets were raining down into we were running. We continued to run. We made it to the ammo shack. The ordnance-man unlocked the door, let himself in. I'm right behind him. What do you want? Give me a 50 caliber machine gun. I got any time left? Now, I'm a recent farm boy. The biggest.
Like there's any way to stop him.
You just kicked me or something, will you? I'm a recent farm boy. The biggest gun I'm used to firing on a regular basis is a shoulder-fired 22 caliber rifle. This is not a shoulder-fired gun. It's a fixed mount machine gun. Hell, it looked to me like a cannon without wheels, but I took it as best I could. Most likely cradled it in my arms, turned, started for the door. By now, I guess a few other brave souls figured they hadn't ought to be in that ditch either, and they had followed us to the ammo shack. The guy coming in the door was somewhat taller than I, huskier build. I just offloaded that machine gun to him. I said, here, take it to the BBY park in front of Tweed Singer. I'll get the ammo. Boy, he looked surprised, but he took a turn and out the door he went. I turned around, and I'm so thankful for that aviation ordnanceman. Without his cooperation, none of this, what I was involved in, could have happened. Anyway, when I turned around, he was just setting 2 canisters of 50 caliber ammo up on the counter. I grabbed those 2 canisters of ammunition, turned out the door I went. Now, I'm not a runner or a sprinter, never have been, but I guarantee you, I beat the guy with the gun to the airplane. He had a heavier load than I did. We were approaching that aircraft from the port side, the same direction that the attacking aircraft were coming in from. But the ladder to get into that airplane was hanging around the backside. I ran around the backside, set those canisters down, started up the ladder. I don't think I got more than a couple of rungs when it dawned on me, hey, if I get inside this airplane, am I going to be strong enough to reach down and pull that big old gun up inside? I don't think so. So I jumped down off the ladder just as the guy with the gun got there. Give it to me. You get up inside. I'll hand it to you. Boy, he chopped up that ladder, jumped inside, turned around, reached down. I got the gun to him somehow, most likely muzzle first, which is the lightest end, but which is also a safety no-no. But I don't think either one of us were thinking about safety right at that time. I shouted, put it in a port blister. That's the side they're coming from. He turned and disappeared into the fuselage of that airplane. I grabbed a canister of that ammo in my right hand, guided myself up the ladder with the left hand, set it inside, back down the ladder, got the second canister back up, set it inside, jumped inside, picked those 2 canisters up, stepped across to the port gun blister just as he was swinging that mounted gun out and locking and firing position. I set the canisters down under the gun, flipped the lid open, come up to the end of the belt, ready to load, thinking he'd have the breech open. But he was just standing there staring skyward. I looked up, and here comes another one of these guys in a power dive. Same old blinking, flashing lights. Now I'm only hearing popping sounds, which I was later told were some of those machine gun bullets passing through the fuselage of that airplane we're in. Big old bomb hanging there in the bottom. Man, I couldn't wait on this other guy to get his train of thoughts back together. I just reached over, slid the lock forward, threw the breech open, fed the end of the belt into the loading mechanism, slammed the breech shut, grabbed the charging pin, pulled it back, let it go. Bam! We get around in chamber. Shoot, I shouted, and he pulled the trigger. Now, I guess he was one of those guys that thought with a machine gun, you don't have to aim. You just point in a general direction and fire away. Because I stood there and watched those machine gun bullets fly off, tracer bullets fly off through empty space where that airplane had once been. I think that's when my country boy hunter instinct kicked into gear. I used to shoot jackrabbits on the run, Chinese ringneck pheasants on the fly, not with a shotgun, with a 22 caliber rifle. I knew that you had to aim and put that bullet where the target would be when the 2 of them came together. I shouted, let me get the next one. He let that gun down, stepped aside. I brought it back up to the firing position just as I did. Here comes another one of those guys in a power dive. Blinking, flashing lights, big old bomb hanging in the bottom. Man, I got a bead and a lead. I continued to lead, squeeze the trigger. I continued firing all the while that airplane came down, completed its power dive, pulled out into level flight and passed just overhead. I watched those tracer bullets fly through the air, and it looked like every one of them went right at that round opening in front of that old radial engine Bell dive bomber, then stitched the stitch right down the bottom of the fuselage. Now, some of you guys know and remember that following each one of those tracer bullets, there are 4 regular bullets, another tracer bullets, 4 more regular bullets. So I know here and I know here that I did some damage to that aircraft. But you're not going to be watching him to see what happens to him. He's going away. He's no longer a threat. You better be looking for the next one that's coming at you. I bring that gun back and I'm looking for another one in the power dive, but I don't see any power dive there. There's one out over the channel, maybe 2 city blocks away, well within the range of a 50 caliber machine gun. Now, he's not in a power dive, but in a steep banking and descending left turn as though he's getting ready to make another machine gun run on it. because he's in that banking turn. I can see the cockpit 6 or 8 feet behind the front of that airplane. I figure at that distance and at that speed, if I use the front of that airplane as my aiming point, I'm going to get some rounds into the fuselage, maybe even into the cockpit. And believe you me, if you can get a couple of 50 Selbach slugs bouncing around inside that cockpit with that pilot, you're going to give him something else to think about besides coming back and machine gunning you a second time. I maintained that lead, squeezed your trigger, brrr. I don't think I got off more than about 6 or 8 rounds, but I saw 2 of those tracer bullets disappear into the fuselage of that airplane just forward of the cockpit. And when they did, that airplane did an abrupt rolling right turn and was gone from my field of fire. No more aircraft came back to bomb or to strafe our end of the island that morning. I stayed at that gun. I got to fire more short bursts at other aircraft as they passed through my limited field of fire on their way to or from other targets, but no more head-on turkey shoots like those first ones were. About halfway through that raid, about the same time that the second wave of those attacking aircraft came in, the USS Nevada came down the channel, making a run for open water. Boy, oh boy, those pilots, those airplanes got on it like a swarm of bees. They were hoping they could sink it there in the channel, and that would have blocked the harbor for some time. I got to fire short bursts at some of those as they, too, passed through my limited field of fire on their way to or from the Nevada. But by now, our own aircraft parked on the ramps and on the apron and adjacent hangar, Building 6, Hangar 1, all of which were between where I was in front of Building 54 and where the Nevada headed over there in the area of Hospital Point. Those airplanes and that hangar were beginning to burn so fiercely, it putting up such a heavy clouds of black smoke that it just obliterated that field of fire. Anyway, he wants me to shut up, folks. Okay. Anyway, on the 50th anniversary of that event, I was watching a news broadcast from Pearl Harbor. It seems that year that they had brought as many as they could of those, located as many as they could of those pilots who had participated in that raid, who had survived the war, who could travel. They'd brought them back to Pearl Harbor for that event. They were interviewing him, and they asked this one pilot, what part did you play in that raid? Now listen carefully to this. He said, I was the lead pilot of a group of 9 aircraft. Our assigned targets were the airplanes and the hangars on Ford Island. That's where I was. He said, when I went in for my first run, machine gun, dropped my bomb, I didn't see a soul. It was like the whole island was asleep. But he said, we were surprised how fast they reacted, because by the time I had came around and was lining up for my second machine gun run, there was so much fire coming up that I turned and went elsewhere. Oh, I would love to have talked to him. There's the guy that dropped the very first bomb to fall at Pearl Harbor that morning. That's the bomb that got to me, physically spilt of my blood. Most likely the very first blood to fall at Pearl Harbor that morning. But in spite of that, I think I'm the guy, or at least one of the guys, that got to him mentally with that on-target 50 caliber machine gun fire and changed his mind about coming back and machine gunning us the second time. Later on, when we light that beacon, as you stand and watch it rotate and send its brighter and broader beam of remembrance out across all the valleys below, if you will put yourselves in the right frame of mind, and if you will listen very, very carefully, not only with your ears, but with grateful hearts and respectful minds, then all of those people who down through the years, not just at Pearl Harbor, but anywhere that the U.S. has been engaged in these battles, those who have given their lives in the pursuit, protection, and preservation of our liberties and our freedoms, they will communicate with you. They will do so in unison, as if with one voice. And their message, their plea, will be the same. Remember us. Remember us. We gave our lives while in service to you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And we have a surprise for you. The helicopter group from Concord, Mark Maupin, is now conducting a surprise flyover. Chuck, you'll press that button on your left, and that will put the beacon in a stationary position facing us so that we might have 30, 40 seconds to have a silent prayer to ourselves about all those who died 75 years ago. Then after that, Chuck will press a second button, and that will put the beacon in rotation. What we'll do is have a countdown, a nice loud countdown, so that this goes as good as we can. From 5 to 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you for your remembrances. Now Chuck will press the next button, and that will put the beacon in rotation, and as Chuck said, so thousands of people can see it for many miles around. Again, a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That concludes the ceremony, and you're free to leave any time. Thank you for coming.